Let's talk about my first day in prison. My name is Jesse and I spent 19 years in the Virginia prison system. And the first thing to talk about is the difference between jail, a receiving prison, and a major institution, at least here in Virginia. So when I was arrested, they took me to jail. They fingerprinted me and they stuck me in an R&D cell, which is a receiving and discharge cell, which is basically for people newly into the institution or leaving the institution. They want to see, do they have a communicable disease? Are they dope sick? Is there something we need to know about them? They locked me in the cell with the lights on 24/7. And I hadn't slept in so long. I was so strung out that I just passed out. I remember hearing the keys and the slot opening and the styrofoam tray coming in, and I took it and I just ate whatever was on there and I just went back to sleep. And I did that for 2 days because I was just in this feral, very ugly state. Then they moved me from there to a classification block. And these were all the people who were new in the jail, who they knew didn't have communicable diseases, but they didn't know what they were in there for. Like, how serious are their charges? Do they have gang affiliations? Is there something we need to know? Then from there, I was moved to a normal unit. In that classification block, it was just a bunch of people in a small space with lines of bunk beds and a shower in the back and nothing to do. Like, half the guys didn't have shower shoes. I didn't have shower shoes, so I had to borrow them from somebody else so I didn't step in that disgusting shower. Because nobody was in there permanently, nobody actually cleaned anything, so it was just one of the filthiest places I've ever been. Then I went to the normal unit, and that was it. You get used to jail life. It's not very exciting, but you get up in the morning, you get your tray, you're locked down sometimes when they're short-staffed, but you basically get into a routine. Then once I'd been sentenced, I was in the jail for about 2 weeks, and they took me to a receiving prison. So they basically took me, put me back in all my street clothes, took my jail scrubs away, put me in handcuffs and shackles in the black box, and loaded me into a Crown Vic, and drove me down the highway. And I was by myself, which felt bizarre, because I'm like in street clothes, even though I have the shackles on, feeling like as human as I felt in 10 months, looking out the window and seeing the world go by. I hadn't left the jail other than to go to court that entire time. So seeing, people doing things in the real world was surreal. So I get to this place, and it's this ancient old brick prison. I mean, it looks like Shawshank. It looks like something crazy. It's got gun towers and razor wire everywhere. And I go in there, and this is a receiving prison. So basically, the first couple months you're there, you're just going to be locked down. You're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to do anything. You got an hour rec, and you got an hour pod rec. So I mean, an hour outside where we used to play handball, or they had like a weight machine, or you just walk around the track. And then your pod rec was the time that you cook your food, or you get your shower, or you do whatever you need to do. But the vast majority of the time, you're just locked in that very, very small cell. Because all these were made as one-man cells, and literally, like, if you're on the toilet, you're touching the bunk. There is no separation between anything in that place. And it was not very exciting, but once I'd been there for a few months and I'd been through the classification process, they moved me to the new side, where they have slightly bigger cells, where you come out of your cell more, where they have microwaves, where it's air conditioning. It was a lot better. And then from there, I've been classified as a level 4. So back there in Virginia, you had from 1 to 6, and you had a work center. So I was classified as a level 4, and I was 2 points away from a level 5, and I was so grateful that I didn't have to deal with that, because you had Wallens Ridge and you had Sussex 1. I mean, they're not places you wanted to be. So instead, they sent me to a place called Nottoway. So I get there, I'm on the bus, and there were a bunch of us in the transfer that time, and they're talking about, oh yeah, I remember this just happened, and so-and-so just got stabbed, and so-and-so just got jumped, and I was like, man, what am I getting myself into? I've never been to a major prison. Like, these places have felt like building blocks or like jails, but I don't know what to expect, because people have been talking about what prison in for all this time. So I get there, and it's this very old-looking institution. It's not as old as the other place. It's not all brick. It's mostly concrete, but it just looked run down. I didn't know what to think of it. And I get there, and I go through property, and the officers they don't care, because I remember I was smoking back then, and I'd been told I couldn't bring an open thing of tobacco to a level 4 or above, so I had like hidden a bunch of cigarettes in my stuff, and the officer was like, man, why'd you hide cigarettes? Like, what are you doing? Why didn't you just bring a can of tobacco? I said, oh, well, they told me I couldn't. And he was like, well, you did a really crappy job hiding it. Like, you need some help. He went in the back, he got me a half pack of Marlboros and brought them out to me. And I was like, well, that's amazing. Like, that's not what I expected in prison. So I go, we roll through one unit, everybody's locked down just like we had been at the first place. I was thinking, oh, I guess they like tricked us. Like, we're just gonna be locked down all the time. And then I roll into this normal unit, and people are out there, and they're on the phone, and they're watching TV, and they're talking and playing cards and writing letters. And it wasn't what I expected. I expected like chaos and warfare and all the things people had told me about. But instead, it just looked like people living their lives. It looked like a high security dorm, like a college dorm. And I was like, well, I don't know how to use it. And I'm like watching how they do the shower lines, and everybody was really respectful, and everything was really reasonable. And I was thinking, like, man, maybe this isn't so bad. Maybe all those rumors I've heard just aren't true. And so I went in there, and I met my cell partner. He was actually a guy who'd been on the bus with me. So we like introduced ourselves. We talked about who's getting the top and the bottom bunk, and everything was fine. And then a couple days later, after this surprisingly normal period, and thinking, hey, prison isn't what everybody says it is, we came out for chow in the morning. And the way they would do it is they would open the doors at 5:30. If you were going to chow, you would come out, and then they would lock all the doors, and you would sit in the pod until they called chow. So it's like early in the morning, nobody wants to do this, and I now have done this 2 days in a row. So this morning I get up, And I hear these two guys arguing, and it's really quiet. It was normally quiet in the morning because everybody was just tired, but it was like unusually quiet. And these guys are arguing, and then one reaches out, grabs a knife out of his pants, the other one reaches back and grabs a lock and sock out of his pants, and I was like, okay, this is not what I was expecting. Like, I thought it was gonna be another quiet morning. I thought this was a place of peace. So the guy who's got the knife reaches over and he grabs a trash can lid. And it's like one of those rounded trash can lids with the little flap on it. And he's holding that. And the guy who has the lock and the sock, he literally has two locks inside a sock. Like inside, not tied up, not anything, just held to the extent of it. So he starts swinging it around and trying to go back and forth. And the other guy just holds up the trash can lid. He hits it with a sock. Both locks go flying out. Now he's holding an empty sock. The other guy's holding a trash can lid and a giant knife. And I was thinking, this guy's gonna die. Like, I'm gonna watch him die. And then they started chasing each other around the pod, and it was the most insane thing in the world. And then they call chow. They come over the loudspeaker and they're like, chow call, chow call. We all just file out like nothing happened. Go to chow. I see both of them at chow. Like, they didn't kill each other back there. I guess they were just like sitting and eating. And then go back, we go on our cells, and like that was the last I heard of it. Like, there was conflict that came after that. There were words, there was discussion, but that was it. And that was when I realized that prison was not in any way easy to explain. It wasn't the complete total chaos and war that other people had said, but it also wasn't just a normal peaceful place to be, because in normal peaceful places, people are not swinging knives or locks and socks at each other at 5:30 in the morning.